Heyo.
What's up?
People don't talk like that anymore. The very word secrecy is repugnant.
I think that's an accent.
That's
for
spot
sure.
on.
For sure. Oh, yeah.
Pour one out for the homie.
Pouring out for the homie.
Because it is the 59th anniversary today.
59th.
Of
Today.
the annexation of Puerto Rico.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wait, what?
Did it
I think I
land like
missed
you wanted
that.
it to?
Yeah, that was a soft joke. No, it's the 59th anniversary of his assassination, obviously. And that's probably one of the most pertinent presidential speeches, especially to something like this show. Kind of shows you where his head was at. There's some, and this is gonna kind of be a soft overlay, a sort of glazing of the topic of the conspiracy surrounding the JFK assassination. But for the most part, JFK is revered, so this will be a fun one.
Yeah. This will be a fun one.
We'll kind of get back into the Cold War like we did. Some of the presidents during the war on drugs episode we did dealt with some Cold War activity, so we'll see some more of that. We'll see some more CIA stuff. 30 callbacks.
30
It'll be fun.
callbacks. Where would you like to begin? Because we have kind of like a rough outline of the broad strokes we're going back and forth on, yeah?
Yeah. Well, I guess we're on the Cold War, so we could.
Yeah, we definitely touched on the Cold War in the last couple episodes, covering social media and, well, not necessarily ancient civilizations, although I probably would have tied it back in somehow.
They had nukes.
Yeah, somehow. Yeah, I don't know. They needed a reason 10,000 years to go to suck these asteroids into the planet. I don't know. But no, so yeah, definitely I was kind of trying to mark the end of the Cold War, right? So kind of the timelines again, back to whenever this all started. But the Cold War would have ended or started with Truman, which is where we left off. I don't think we left off, but...
That's the Truman Doctrine, correct?
Yeah, the Truman Doctrine, where we basically established ourselves as the world police for democracy, right? We became Iron Man.
That's kind of the aspect that I don't like about JFK is that he kind of
is an extension of it.
Yeah, and he was actually a congressman when Truman Doctrine was passed, and he was for it. He voted to pass it or to get it through Congress at least.
He was a senator. Is that what you said?
He was a congressman when the Truman Doctrine was passed.
Oh, my bad. Yeah.
He became senator after that, and then obviously president. But when he interesting. Here's a funny enough fact right off the bat. When he was running for the nominee for president, Truman did not want him to be the nominee. Truman was anti-JFK. He thought he was too young.
I caught that too. What I read, I feel like he was saying he would just feel like he was kind of inexperienced, which was the general vibe. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's still the youngest president ever elected.
Yeah, but I think Theodore, who took over after McKinley? Theodore Roosevelt.
One of the
McKinley
Roosevelts.
was assassinated, and whoever his VP was, which I think is either Theodore or FDR, I don't know.
Yeah.
Was actually the youngest to go into office as president.
Kennedy was the youngest president going into office, and then the youngest president when he died.
It's crazy.
He was the youngest elected, not the youngest.
I'm saying there hasn't been a president elected that's younger than he was when he died. That's what I meant to say.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, he was like 40, right? 39?
I think he had. No, I think he might have been closer to 33. I might be wrong on that.
34. Here, I'll look it up.
It was. I think it was pretty close
to
33 or 34.
So yeah, we'll probably end up talking a lot about some of his policies, or at least what we were able to dig up.
Yeah.
He was elected in 60. When was he born?
1917. End of the World War. Great
So
War.
he's 37.
Yeah. A little bit later, but yeah, that's still pretty young. It's crazy to think about now. I mean, I reverse it and think it's crazy to think that, I don't know, that we have 80-year-olds representing us. Nothing against 80-year-olds, but
they shouldn't be president.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
The way I see it,
he was 46 when he died. He was president for like 2.5, 3 years.
So 42, somewhere in there, 43.
Yeah, 43. Yeah. Okay.
10 years later. That's still. I mean, that to me is even. That's 10 years older than I am now. That's
yeah, and
that's not old, but
kind of the thought behind how he got elected was he was the first presidential debate on TV was JFK Nixon. Nixon was speaking to the reporters asking questions, and JFK was speaking to the TV. And Nixon wore like a tan suit and fit in with the background and had a 5 o'clock shadow already because it was, primetime TV. But JFK looked all put together and was obviously more attractive than Tricky Dick. But
wasn't Nixon like sick or something? He had like an infected leg or something like that.
No, that was Kennedy. But Nixon was sweaty as a motherfucker because he was nervous, so he looked gross. They actually took a poll back in the day. I don't know how accurate the poll was, but it came out with that radio listeners thought Nixon won, but TV listeners thought Kennedy won.
I remember hearing about that. That was, yeah. Sorry.
It kind of led to the close election that they had. It was contentious the whole time. But he was 6 points behind before that debate even happened. So
yeah.
He made up a lot of ground.
He was also, I mean, this would have been, you're talking about the presidential.
Run up to
yeah. But LBJ, he was going up against LBJ in the Democratic primaries too.
Yeah, it was LBJ and some dude named Steve that had won the past two, but it hadn't won the election. Yeah. Steve something.
Yeah. Well, either way. But yeah, and he ends up being his vice president. He ends up campaigning with him as his vice president.
Yeah.
To draw in Southern Texas votes.
The Southern Democrats who were still kind of, behind the civil rights times. But Robert F. Kennedy wanted him to pick some head of some worker party, some other guy. I didn't memorize their names. They weren't picked, so they're less important. But he didn't do that so he could win more of the Southern Democrat vote, who they were afraid would vote for Nixon if it was just Kennedy.
I was reading there was something like they were reluctant to vote for like a Catholic. That seemed odd to me. That I don't know. I guess that was still pretty early, but I don't know what would be wrong with having a Catholic president.
Oh, at the time, Catholics were like a lower level of human. It was all about Protestants.
At what point in time was that? I don't remember that.
No, for sure. There was like old. What do they call it? Old school American WASP elites.
Yeah, because
they didn't want Catholic presidents at all.
And a lot of the post-World War II immigrants were Catholics.
That, and there still hasn't been a Catholic president since JFK, I believe.
Yeah.
You can try to fact check me on it, but I believe I'm right.
I also believe you're right.
Biden's Catholic, right? No?
Biden?
Oh, you're right. Kind
Biden is not fucking Catholic.
Is he not?
He says he is, but I'm pretty sure, and this is some
He
other weird.
says a lot of things.
Yeah, you're not wrong. There's some other political stuff involved, but I think the clergy is like, no, he can't. He's not allowed to like claim Catholicism. That would require a Google. That's just an article title I read once. But
it's worth Google.
So okay,
he had a lot of enemies.
Part of the 1960 election, and part of the reason he got hired is that the Kennedys had really deep ties to Irish mobs because their dad was a bootlegger. Is that correct? He had mob ties. He worked for him.
JFK's dad?
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't find out what he did. I just knew that he was very well off to be able to finance his son, JFK.
I'm pretty sure he was a bootlegger during Prohibition for the mob, and that he made a shitload of money off of it. Because before that, I don't know how well off the Kennedys were. That's kind of how they made their
wealthy. They were wealthy. He graduated from Harvard.
Right. And for some reason, I think their grandfather did well. Maybe their grandfather was a bootlegger.
They were definitely wealthy. They had mob ties, and JFK, I think, was the first one that didn't want to do anything that wanted nothing to do with the mob. Excuse me, and so that created
because the mob
right there.
Yeah, because the mob did get him elected. They were heavy in the unions and kind of pushed, in the way a mob does to get him votes that he might not have gotten. And which is kind of dumb because even in Congress, him and Robert F. Kennedy were going after corruption in unions, which means they're going after the mob.
Yeah.
But after he became president, it got more heavy, especially with Robert F. Kennedy. I think he was Secretary of State or something. What was his?
Bobby?
Yeah, didn't RFK have a cabinet role?
Dude, yeah, he definitely did. It was his chief of staff, I think, maybe. You fact check me.
I think he was like attorney general or something. Like he had some role in deciding what.
He might have been attorney general.
Here, I'll look it up. Y'all keep going.
I'm already going.
You wrote down Teamsters. That word is kind of.
That's what I was implying. What you were just talking about.
Okay, so the Teamsters Union.
It was attorney general.
He was the AG. Yeah, AG from 61 to 64.
Yep.
Damn, look at me, just knowing shit.
Look at what did I
just
say? Chief of staff. That's such a small position for him. Anyways.
Yeah. Then he ran and got.
Dude, they've
Sirhan.
They've systematically wiped them out. There was a Kennedy that ran against Clinton. Did you see that?
RFK Jr. I would like to do a whole episode on that because he died in a sketchy ass plane wreck.
Dude, it's crazy shit. And it's the
they
fucking
never
Clintons.
Found the black box.
Yeah.
So I didn't look too much into this, but you kind of have a grasp on what his ideologies when running were.
I do a little bit.
Someone made it a section in the outline. Oh damn! Hang on. Here's an aside. Zoe watched the last episode, and she went, "I really like what Jeremy did, making the outline and keeping everybody on the same thing." And I was like I said we do the outline. Kind of triggered me a little bit. But I do go off on tangents and you pull it back, so not unwarranted. Anyways, his ideas.
I think you were speaking to some of them. His running on the secret society stuff.
Trying to for desegregation.
The civil rights were definitely heavily involved. I got that on there too to make a point that all this is going on in tandem with everything else. The CIA and stuff and the HBO, FBI, were all like relics from earlier presidency. They're from earlier presidents. I can't remember. It was Hoover and all those guys back in I guess a decade earlier, maybe.
Yeah, but they had different names. Before that, they evolved into the CIA and the FBI with different names.
Right.
We'll get into this later, but Allen Dulles was the head of the CIA under JFK. Allen Dulles' uncle started I'm not going to remember. Office of Secret Intelligence or something like that.
Is this a pre thing to the HBO?
Yeah, it didn't turn into the CIA or the FBI.
Mm.
It turned into something else. Okay, well, apparently the OSI is from comic books. Or the Venture Brothers. I thought it was Office of Secret Intelligence.
Are you Googling it?
Yeah, I had it written down, but now I don't know where I wrote it. Anyway, it's just an aside.
So, look at this comment. Biden is reviewing the JFK files and supposed to release them in December. That's coming up real quick.
Yeah,
Have y'all heard about that?
Trump released some shit, but I watched another video of a guy who was talking about it and who had this is not even information at this point. He had seen a lot of the stuff behind the scenes. He was in some position to see it, and he was like, even if that stuff comes out, you're not going to learn anything.
Yeah.
Which I think is probably true.
It's like dead set.
Even if they do know and wrote it down and it's in the records, those records aren't coming out.
Yeah, I didn't finish my comment earlier. I meant to say they're waiting for the Bushes to die.
Oh yeah, you just said they're waiting for the
They're waiting for the Bushes.
Yeah.
They're waiting for the Bushes to die so they can release some of this stuff. So it's
only George W. now, right? Didn't Herbert Walker die?
He's got a brother, Jeb.
What? That didn't count.
And children, probably. I don't know. If you think of like them trying to wipe out the JFK family, then the Bush family would be the opposite. They're just prolific.
There's still one Kennedy. Ted Kennedy? Is that the one?
Mm-hmm.
He was pretty outspoken during COVID, I think. I don't know what he was saying. I'm not a fan. Just saying he's alive. He didn't get murdered somehow.
Did he get canceled?
Oh, almost surely.
Release the info they want us to see. Exactly.
Okay, so he campaigned on the party alignment and capturing the Southern Democrats, like we already said. And then major policies? What was his... Do you know, or did you just write that?
That's what I was trying to find.
Oh. I think a lot of it was like the build-up to... Well, he actually was the build-up to the Vietnam War during his presidency. But there was a lot of... it was the height of the Cold War, and everyone was terrified of communism, and he was kind of on board with quashing rebellious communistic uprisings in other countries.
That was his idea of holding up the Truman Doctrine?
Yeah, and it was like it's to prevent the USSR from spreading and, inflaming the Cold War, which he probably just did anyways, to be honest. I read it. He died before the Vietnam War started. LBJ was the first one. We had troops and advisors and all kinds of stuff in Nam already, but LBJ in '64 sent like boatloads of troops. I think actually Kennedy was the first one to that when they dropped shit out of the planes to kill the foliage so they couldn't hide as well. That was under Kennedy.
Guerrilla warfare?
No, guerrilla warfare is modern warfare, essentially.
You think? I don't know. I'm kind of reaching out with this one. might be a little bit out there, but do you think he had anything to do with like some of the weather warfare that was going on during Vietnam?
Oh, like the constant raining?
Constant raining and yeah, shit like that.
I don't know. That's a good question.
You think he affected the weather?
No, I'm saying if he had anything, like if he knew anything about that, if he was involved in any type of way.
From what I saw, he had 2 different agencies telling him how things were going. And he didn't know which one to trust because they were telling him different things. Like they were saying the program to defoliate Vietnam is working, and the other one is like, it's not fucking working. Stop doing that. You're just wasting money on planes and whatever the hell were they? Were they dropping like Agent Orange or something? Wasn't it like a major thing?
Agent, yeah.
I know they firebombed the shit out of Vietnam, but the shit that they tried to drop to burn the jungles was, from what I remember, like very bad for people.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, you drop bombs. Yeah.
Yeah, you're killing leaves, you're killing people.
People are getting cancer from pesticides. It's essentially the same stuff.
Yeah, Monsanto. You're not wrong.
Did you say DeSanto?
Monsanto. But what I was saying about Vietnam is that he was kind of inflaming it because first it was in Laos because Laos had a civil war and all the that area's countries were they had heavy influence from communism and I think it was Eisenhower thought that Laos would be the linchpin for that area to either be democratic or communistic, and Kennedy switched it to Vietnam because he thought Vietnam would be. And he also had journals about. He was very aware of the like. He was like, if we send more troops, these people are going to hate us even more. They don't want us there, but the people that don't want communism might not want us there, but they allow us to be there to fight the rebels or whatever. So he was kind of like, it was a huge buildup, and he probably didn't quash any flames, but he was very aware of the situation as far as like the mentality of the Vietnamese people was going at the time. It was kind of interesting. He had journals and he wrote that, and it was like, oh shit.
Yeah. No, I think there were some clear indicators. There were struggles in his cabinet telling him what to do to handle the situation, right? And yeah. I'm sure he had like just a line of people telling him to exercise some mighty weapons.
Yeah, and I know when he died, he had just signed something to pull 1,000 advisors out of Vietnam, but he wasn't going to totally pull out.
Yeah.
And then when LBJ took over, he went, no, leave him in there. We're about to send more.
Yeah.
LBJ is one of my least favorite presidents. He's also the only president to go to a Texas college.
I don't know. Is he that
Really?
bad? Is he that bad of a guy?
He went to Texas State.
Yeah, why do you dislike him the most?
The Southern Democrats at the time were racist, but they were passing laws for like civil rights and stuff, but to the extent to where they were allowing people to live off the government. And I think that's probably ruined more generations of people than, I don't know, I can't name another government program that is like incentivized not getting married and not having a job and not taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a government's job to do that necessarily, unless you're debilitated in some way.
I think that's the idea, right?
Well, yeah, but also you don't have to be. That's kind of besides the point. So anyways.
So he was the running... yeah.
Hmm?
No, you go ahead. So he was obviously
I was gonna jump to the early parts of his presidential career.
Yeah, I put that on there too. I was trying to make there was a contrast between what he was running on versus how he I guess, ultimately saw things toward the end.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think he went in one way and then came out the other. And I couldn't find some of the articles I was trying to remember, but
I saw something recently. I think it was on Joe Rogan. So
yeah.
let's do the Joe Rogan experience. So where he was dating someone who was like heavy into acid,
Yeah.
and they attributed that to his change of heart on things like Vietnam and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm sure it wasn't overnight or anything. I'm sure it was a gradual experience for him to kind of change his opinion on some of this stuff. And I think that just drives further the conspiracy of motivations and why they would want to have assassinated him.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, that's kind of the important question. Like, why, if the U.S. government did it, why did they do it? Is it because he's decided to not go to the Vietnam War and everyone's already geared up to do so and is going to make a lot of money off of it?
Yeah, because war makes the most money out of anything.
Yeah. I mean, is there any other? I mean, there's a lot of tension with Cuba, but I don't think that.
Yeah, Cuba, the
that
Soviet Union, you got the mob, the CIA, the military industrial complex.
Okay, so the reason for the government to do it is the industrial complex. What did you call it? I'm blanking.
Industrial military complex?
There you go. Industrial military
What did I
complex.
say?
The reason for the mob to do it is because him and RFK are cracking down on the mob, or trying to, and they're stranglehold on unions. Obviously, Castro wants to because he's trying to kill Castro. He has like 3 or 4 different things. Operation Mongoose.
And then he had
Operation Dirty Tricks.
what is it? Bay of the Pigs invasion?
Yeah, Bay of Pigs.
Bay of
And
Pigs.
then the Cuban Missile Crisis was another one. Bay of
No.
Pigs scared the shit out of Castro.
It failed though.
Okay, let's get into Bay of Pigs.
Yep. This might be a whole episode worth, but we can definitely touch on it for sure.
So Bay of Pigs, we take a bunch of Cuban friendlies and train them. I think it's like 2,000, maybe 1,200 or something like that, and storm the beaches of Cuba with them. This is Alan Dulles' idea. He's a real piece of shit. This is the reason he got fired as the head of the CIA. He thought that there would be air support and that Kennedy would change his mind on that once he was like, oh, everyone's dying because they're storming a beach. And that didn't happen. So, like, they had to negotiate to release like 1,100 of the rebels that they basically trained and sent there.
Yeah, because Kennedy okayed the plan.
Yeah.
But he told him he wouldn't give them, air support.
Yeah.
And then when it failed, the CIA blamed a lot of the failure on JFK not giving them the air support.
He even publicly apologized for okaying it. I don't think he apologized for not providing air support, but for starting it. And then he was presented with several covert options to deal with Cuba. He was gunning for Castro. They wanted to kill that guy.
Most definitely.
Operation Mongoose was they stopped trading sugar and fuel with Cuba and cut them off. And they were trying to upset the population of Cuba with terrible living situations and get them to blame Castro for it. That totally didn't work at all.
No, because they knew it was us.
Yeah, and Castro's he's a bad dude, but he's also charismatic. So, there was another one called Operation Dirty Trick that they didn't end up doing. But in 1962, they sent John Glenn, something like that. Maybe it's Robert Glenn. He was the first American to orbit the Earth.
It's John Glenn is the astronaut, yeah.
And they had a plan that if something went wrong, because they weren't sure that they had the capability of doing that yet, if something went wrong, they were going to blame the USSR and Cuba. And like, it was the plan was that the CIA was going to fabricate
Are you saying this is Kennedy doing this stuff?
Yeah. Yeah. And this one was okayed. It's called Operation Dirty Trick. They were going to fabricate evidence and blame it on Cuba or the USSR. And then they brought him Operation Northwoods, which I think we've probably talked about on this show.
I've heard it.
Which is they were going to fly planes into military and civilian areas around the U.S. and blame it on Cuba in order to invade Cuba. And the second they invade Cuba, they start World War III, and it's thermonuclear. So
right, that's the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Yeah, the Cuban Missile Crisis is that Russia sent large, accurate, capable of nukes missile silos to Cuba, and they saw it and went, "What the fuck?" And I think the way they got out of that was they publicly said they would never invade Cuba, and then privately they pulled the missiles that we had sent to Turkey out of Turkey. But those missiles that we pulled out of Turkey were already pieces of shit, and we had subs with like 27 missile shooter thingies that they didn't know about that were probably closer than the Turkish missiles were.
Yep.
But this is all just like the context of the Cold War and all this time, and then eventually his assassination is like probably more heightened than it is now with the Ukraine-Russia situation.
Do you know?
And that's every other news article now. So can't imagine back then how volatile all these situations were.
The Cold War definitely warrants an episode because there's just too much to it. Because I was trying to do research for the show too, and I was realizing it's not one show. It's like months of content, and that's why there's so much content out there already about it. But speaking to the conspiracy side to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just motivations of why that people would want to kill this person. I think if you're following the trail of Truman from World War II into his modern, I say modern.
Truman, Eisenhower, Nixon, right?
No, it goes Truman, JFK, LBJ, Nixon. I think Eisenhower, I think, is before Truman.
I'm gonna look it up.
No, it's not. That's way wrong. We should definitely look that up.
I don't think Eisenhower's before Truman. Damn. Yeah, we should look this up. Who was president in 60?
JFK wasn't killed by the CIA, then the files wouldn't be classified. There you go. See? Easy answer.
You're looking it up, Clayton?
I got it right now. Clayton is right. It's Roosevelt, Truman, Eisenhower, Kennedy.
Nixon, Kennedy.
Nope. Truman, Eisenhower, Kennedy, LBJ, Nixon. We were
Nixon
both right, and
Johnson.
we were both wrong. Yeah.
Yeah. No, you're right. Because JFK had phone calls with Eisenhower about the Cuban Missile Crisis. Yeah. I found that on YouTube, which I thought was insane. It was interesting to listen to. There was not much in it. It was mostly just Kennedy going, "We're going to take care of this. I know you're really worried," calling him General Eisenhower. And then LBJ had phone calls with Herbert Hoover, who was head of the FBI, who was like, "Yeah, you should definitely buy a bulletproof car. I can't believe you don't have one. We have 3 in the FBI." Apparently, the Secret Service was slacking.
The FBI, well, that's what I had pulled up on another tab, was the FBI shit, because you get into the civil rights and you get into MLK and all that stuff. That's just another episode too, right?
No, we'll get into that probably closer to the end of the show, because after the Warren Commission, way further into like the mid 70s, maybe late 70s, was the House Intelligence Committee on Assassinations that went back over the Kennedy assassination and went over the MLK. It was MLK and Kennedy in one investigation.
So you have the shady CIA and the shady FBI both having good reasons on wanting this guy dead. I don't know.
Yeah.
Duh.
Yeah, so he's doing the civil rights. There's the Cuban Missile Crisis, Operation Mongoose, and
the Cuban Missile Crisis really helped bring back his reputation, because his reputation was kind of tainted from Bay of the Pigs.
Right, because he totally flubbed Bay of Pigs, and then Cuban Missile Crisis, it came across that he got us out of, nuclear war. And the whole basis of the space race really is he made the promise that before 1970 the US would go to the moon.
Mm-hmm.
And we were behind the Russians the whole time until we went to the moon. We just beat them to the moon. They beat us to everything else. Satellites, orbit, living creatures. I think they sent a dog and we sent a monkey. Is that correct?
I think they sent a dog. Neil deGrasse Tyson has a whole book on the only reason we ever went to the moon. The only reason we're so technologically advanced is because of the war.
Yeah.
Or wars in general, I should say.
And then but then towards the end of his presidency, he kind of he made that speech that we played at the top of the show.
Yeah.
And was kind of railing against secret societies. And this is all after firing Alan Dulles. Because part of him being young and being president and inexperienced, and it's kind of a different way that presidents manage the presidency, is that he would listen to everyone around him and assume that those people had the best intention of the country in mind and more knowledge than he might have on the subject. So he didn't necessarily defer. He would definitely override people. But if someone like the head of the CIA was like, this is what we need to be doing to stave off communism and win the Cold War, he was more likely to go with that than maybe someone who was like, no, I'm president. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. He wasn't afraid to delegate, basically. And so when he fired Dulles, that is kind of the same time when he starts railing against the CIA itself and secret societies and things of that nature.
Yeah. I meant to get into it. I didn't. There's a good movie out there. I was trying to find it while you were talking, called 13.
The moon landing was that fake.
13
Yeah,
days.
the chat's blown up about the moon. We need to do a whole episode on the moon landing. I think we wrote that down. I think it's in the notes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm down.
No, there was this.
Yeah, we got to do that.
There was this movie our college professor made us watch, 13 Days. And it's just the 13 days leading up to the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Oh, wow.
It's got Kevin Costner in it. It's pretty good.
That's interesting.
It's a really good movie, and to the point that I was trying to make, I was saying, I think he was getting all this counsel from people he put around him and stuff, telling him to do certain things. But ultimately, I think he made decisions based on that counsel. But I think, and again, I couldn't find it, but evidence to say that he was against it to begin with and hadn't been talked into it almost, right?
Oh yeah,
like being reluctant to do a lot of this stuff and then conceding and saying, "Hey, I'm not going to drop nukes, but I'll send more troops or something like that, or whatever there was."
Like kind of the way he dealt with Vietnam in the beginning, and basically up until his death, he wasn't sending troops; he was sending advisors and like training battalions to train the people in Vietnam for the Vietnamese. Not the rebels. What he called not rebels, whatever. Those people, he was trying to train them, not show force, if that makes sense. Yeah. So that kind of goes along with what you're saying. That
they were anti-Castro Cuban exiles.
That's the Bay of Pigs,
dude. There's so much. There's so much shit if you follow like just the Cubans were tied to not Pizzagate. Goddamn, what was the original gate? Watergate.
Yeah.
And all these other weird stuff that they keep popping up in, that they were like assets for the CIA and stuff like that.
Well, yeah, and I think I brought it up, and I tried to look for it this time, and I didn't find it. We'll have we plan on doing this next year and taking the whole month of November on JFK. So we're gonna brush over some stuff. That's my plan.
Yeah,
I'm gonna make us do that.
Definitely broad strokes.
He won by point. He got delegates. He got like 303 delegates to like 206 or 213 against Nixon.
Very close vote.
The popular vote was 45.7 to 45.5. Like just I think it's still the thinnest margin of victory in American history. 2016 might have broke that.
I think that's what I was going to say, is that that was the next closest election, was the 2016 election.
Yeah, but it was just razor thin margins. It's kind of crazy. And I heard a story. And it was kind of backed up because 2 states, I can't remember which ones they are. I think one is Oklahoma, and I think one is something like Georgia or something. But they sent delegates that were not, like, they sent delegates for not Nixon or not Kennedy. They sent delegates that basically weren't on the ballot to vote for someone else who was not either of them because they didn't want. Damn. To have read that earlier today, I should really remember it. But 2 states sent delegates that kind of threw the election in a way, or at least the delegate count.
Yeah, it's just that Times form of election fraud.
I say all that just to say that like it kind of repeats itself in that the reason January 6th happened is people wanted Pence to count different delegates that states had sent that were not, like, some states sent 2 sets of delegates and they wanted Pence to count these ones, not the ones that seem more official. And the same kind of thing happened in the 60 election, or at least it's similar in its amount of convoluted confusion and upheaval of,
You're comparing January 6th to the Kennedy and Nixon?
No. I'm comparing the election of 2020 to the election of 1960. There's not really an excuse to break into the Capitol.
There's never an excuse to break into the Capitol?
Not never, but that wasn't one.
I don't know. Maybe if there's somebody like locked inside of it, sure, but I don't know. Anyways.
Yeah, that's why I said not never.
I think the first time the debates were ever televised too. Yeah, we were touching on that. The debate between Nixon and JFK.
Yeah, they gained JFK's like basically 6 points.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that was the first televised debate.
Yeah, I know, right? 1960. I mean, they had TVs for 20 years before that, right?
There's another movie. I'm gonna keep just plugging movies, man, because that defines my whole childhood, apparently. But
JFK by what's his name?
There's a movie called Blast from the Past.
Oh, with Brendan
Fraser. Yeah. God bless him.
He's alive.
No, I hope he's doing well. Love that guy.
He just got like an 8-minute standing ovation for some indie movie called Whale.
Yeah, he's a sainthood at this point. Well deserved. I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway.
Blast from the Past, it takes place, I think, right at the Cuban Missile Crisis, like 63, 64, and there's like a plane crash and stuff like that. And then 30 years later, the kid emerges in the 90s or whatever, and is just shocked. This is just a weird tangent. I don't know why I'm going down it, but...
Well, I'll join you on it, because there's also an episode of Boy Meets World where Corey goes back in the past, and they're taught... Yeah, and they're being taught to, if they hear the air raid siren, to duck under their... desk or whatever.
That sounds vaguely
familiar. And he's sitting in his chair and everyone does it and they're like, get under your desk if there's a nuclear attack or whatever, and he goes, and kiss your butt goodbye, and he gets in trouble because you weren't allowed to say butt in the 60s.
So dumb.
Was it black and white?
I think it had portions that it went black and white.
Was it like the whole cast was there, like Feeney was still the teacher?
Yeah.
But it was just set in the 50s, 60s.
And they were like, you're weird because you're from his tendencies, because he was from the 90s, were so different.
He just got put in an episode of Happy Days or something.
Mm-hmm.
And all those TV shows, and when it was married, they didn't sleep in the same beds?
Either Sean or Eric had the leather jacket and kind of acted like Fonzie. And at Chubby's, it was like...
dude, that has to be a trope, too, at this point, because that 70s show did it at some point.
Mm-hmm.
I hope your love for Brendan Fraser ages well, Jeremy. Me too, man, because... he's going to play me like a fiddle.
Why wouldn't it?
I don't know. It comes out he's some kind of
not
such a great guy.
Like he's not a good guy? Is he not?
I think he is, because on YouTube, they do these things where actors will talk about their most famous roles or whatever. And you watch Brendan Fraser's and you're like, oh my God, dude, you're just a fucking sweetheart.
Dude, he seems... there's an opportunity that's not genuine. Sure, I would admit that, but... I'm buying what he's selling. How about that?
I totally agree.
For
So anyway, let's get back on track because the meat of the JFK, we've provided a lot of context, but the meat of the JFK conspiracy is the assassination itself and the whodunits, the wherefroms, the what the fucks. Was it Lee Harvey? You know, I mean, we could do a whole podcast on Lee Harvey Oswald and his ties to intelligence communities, his roles
Russia,
in anti-Castro groups. Was that just ploys? Like, yeah, there's so much surrounding him.
We love to have you here, Ketchup. Thank you for being here.
Oh, I love Ketchup.
What up, Ketchup?
And so I think we should take a rough, quick roll down the official JFK assassination story. Basically, the Warren Commission, what they said, and then we'll talk about everything that they really fucked up.
The Warren Commission?
Yeah.
So I did intentionally do as little research on some of the stuff too, because I imagine there was going to be a lot of overlap, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I imagine, this is going to be your field. But I did have a question. Do you know who Eli Hunt is?
Is that E. Howard Hunt?
Okay, yeah. Go ahead.
Did he make the deathbed confession?
Sure, yeah.
I don't even think that's who did it, to be honest. 11/22/63, starring James Franco, is excellent. He's been canceled.
What? I haven't seen that. He's been canceled?
I think so. Also, I don't know how factually accurate it is. I think it's probably not very, because it is a time travel movie, basically. Or miniseries. But it's also fucking awesome to watch. It's really cool. Did you see the raw footage?
You know that's like part of our intro, right?
Oh yeah, let's talk about that. So this is a Zapruder film. Do y'all know the lore behind the Zapruder film?
So that was hang on. So the magic bullet, like I've always heard that's one bullet. Is that not?
Yes, the magic bullet is one bullet.
The video that you showed, it's like there's clearly two shots.
Yes, but the Warren Commission said there were 3 shots, 2 of them hit and 1 missed completely.
Yeah.
And the reason they did that, all right, let's start at the top.
Okay, my bad. Yeah.
They think Lee Harvey Oswald is in the 5th floor of the school book depository, shoots 3 shots out of a Mannlicher Carcano, which is a bolt action kind of antiquated gun at the time. It's Italian made. It was the Italians' response to the M1 Garand, but the M1 Garand was semi-automatic. That doesn't really matter. Or Springfield, I think. They were trying to make a Springfield, but the Springfield's way better. Doesn't matter. Which is technically possible to shoot that many rounds in 7 seconds out of a bolt action, but to aim and fire accurately seems impossible.
So the Warren Commission says, you said
6th floor. You're right. I'm sorry. It is the 6th floor. Because it's the 6th floor museum, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The Warren Commission says shot 1 from the 6th floor window goes through JFK's back and out the front and nothing else. Then shot 2 misses. And the only reason they say that is because like a month later, maybe a day later, it's probably actually a day, there was a guy under the... Ooh, did I link the picture of Dealey Plaza? Pull up a picture of Dealey Plaza while I'm talking.
I thought the first shot went through his neck.
Yeah, neck back. It's his 3rd vertebrae. So it's it's where your neck and back meet, essentially.
Cool.
And that's when you see him hunch forward and do that. Pick a different one. Maybe like a more aerial view. So the first one hits there, and that's it.
That's not what I wanted. Why did I
Hang
do
on.
that? What?
I'm wrong. The first one is the magic bullet, and it goes through his back, and then it hits the governor.
Yeah, through his shoulder into his wrist, I think.
Yeah, and then into his thigh. And JFK's in a jump seat, so he's sitting higher than Connolly. So they said it went through his neck back, out into Connolly's shoulder, out of Connolly's shoulder, into his wrist, shattering his wrist, down into his thigh. There's a number of issues with this because the bullet they say did it is like borderline pristine. And if a bullet hits bone, then the bullet shears to almost nothing. Like I think the FBI shot goats with the same gun and the same type of bullet trying to recreate it. And every time they did it and it hit bone in the goat, it didn't exist anymore. But the one they found on the gurney was perfect. Yeah, that's a good diagram. And what's interesting about that is that JFK is probably a foot higher than, maybe not a foot, probably like 8 inches higher than.
That could
I'm
just
going
be
to keep calling
perspective.
Connolly. I'm pretty sure his name's Connolly.
It says it right there, Connolly.
It says it right there, yeah.
Oh, cool. Look at my memory go. So anyways, it shatters his thigh, shatters his wrist, goes into his thigh. Second one misses. The only reason they said that is because this is why I wanted to picture Dealey Plaza. The railroad overpass, which you see the car go through right after all the shots. There's a guy standing there. And he heard the shots and kind of ran away and then talked to a cop, and the cop was like, "You got blood on your face." And he was like, "Oh yeah, I heard the shots, and then I remember something stinging me in the face." And they went back and looked at the curb, and there's a bullet hole in the curb. Then the Warren Commission like cut the curb out and did tests, never showed the results of the test. The curb looked different by the time they pulled it off the road or whatever. It's a big farce in that end. But that's the only reason they think one of the shots missed, or that they had to make the magic bullet, because they knew that a bullet hit the ground by the overpass. Then the third shot, they said, hit him in the back of the head, hit JFK in the back of the head, and made him lurch backwards, because that makes all the sense in the world. And that's
if you get shot in the back, your immediate reaction is to go backwards.
Yeah, it's the opposite of what happens. It's so obvious that he got shot from the front.
So yeah, this is a good picture then, because here's the 6th floor, right here. You can't see my cursor, but the yellow circle. And then the car. I guess I'm assuming the green X's are shots.
Yes.
The 2 shots in the video.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's coming from this direction, the video clearly shows that it's coming from like the way left side of this picture, right? Because my assumption of how physics works. I mean, I'm an idiot. I'm fucking an idiot. But if I got shot in the face, I would go backwards.
Yes.
And that's what the video did somebody doctor the video? Is that what you're trying to get into?
No, I'm saying he got shot from the front and the Warren Commission is lying.
Yeah. I agree.
Also, pull that diagram back up.
Oh,
they're saying
magic bullet.
No, Dealey Plaza.
Oh, my bad.
They're saying that Lee Harvey Oswald is in the 6th floor waiting with a rifle for the president to drive by.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see the route the motorcade takes?
Yeah, the red.
And that car would be driving directly at him.
This guy over here?
No, to the right, on the right side. Do you see the arrow on the right that points this way, and then it goes back around?
This way? Yeah. If you were going to take that shot, you would be here.
Yeah, you'd take it right there while he's driving at you, getting closer in a straight line at you. And the motorcade was 6 minutes left. So if this is 6 minutes late. So if Lee Harvey Oswald is sitting up there waiting for the president, he's been there for 10 minutes waiting with a gun in his hand, and waits to shoot until he's past him. Like a damn near a football field. That's ridiculous. That makes no sense at all.
Look at the right corner, right bottom corner, that white building hanging out. What if they were right there shooting?
I think they'd have to be in here somewhere, right?
I'll say that. That white building's pretty fucking far. Because where your cursor is now, that's the little wooden fence in the grassy knoll where people think that someone shot him from.
Yeah. Could have been. And especially because, look, this is uploaded in 2020, and we're talking about the 60s. Whoa. So obviously the environment has changed.
Most of those trees are way smaller. Like there's a deaf mute guy that's driving on the bridge. Here's the motorcade route. He's driving on this bridge. and he stops his car to watch the motorcade and can see down into the parking lot behind that wooden fence and sees a guy with a gun. One looks like a cop, one looks like a railroad worker.
There's a railroad just the bottom of this picture. I don't know if you could see it, but right here.
Yeah, but that right next to that railroad bridge is a bridge for cars.
Okay, that makes sense.
It's the triple overpass. Like cars both ways, railroad, triple overpass. He sees those guys doing that. There's a documentary. It's a really good one. And I think it was made in the late 80s, early 90s. It's called The Men Who Killed Kennedy. And they postulate that there's 3 people. There's a whole convoluted story. Just go watch the documentary. It's kind of hard because it's like a 90s documentary, but it doesn't matter. They think someone is in the 6th floor, someone's closer to ground level, and then someone's behind that wooden fence, and that there were 4 shots, but 2 of them happened almost simultaneously, which makes all the bullet wounds work.
So the video that we're talking about, there was no original sound in it, right?
No, there's no sound in it.
So somebody went back and added the sound effects for the gunshots, right?
Yeah.
But so they're basing it off of the impact of the hits.
No, there is audio recording, but I've never seen it lined up.
A police officer had some
like a radio open or something.
Yeah, he had a radio opening and he had an audio clip of the bullets going off, and that was just recently discovered in the office, like in his office, I guess.
Well, I think they must have had another one because that the second commission, the House Intelligence Committee investigation on assassinations, one of the things that, because they said there was likely a conspiracy, and the reason is they brought in audio engineers who said there's actually 4 shots.
I think that's what I was getting at, is like, where were the 4 shots confirmed at?
Right, and they use spatial analytics of audio to determine that they probably came from different
just
spots,
any evidence,
or at least different guns.
Auditorily of it. I mean,
yeah.
Just looking at this and what the video that we're talking about, if Oswald, I mean, I'm not doubting that Oswald was implicated.
Yeah, so Zapruder takes the film, the one from our intro, the legendary Zapruder film, which we'll get into the history of. He's right above the left X.
Oh, my bad.
The leftmost X.
Over here.
He's like he's like on the road on that left side on that sidewalk.
That makes sense.
He had Hashimoto's? What the fuck? Oh, that's
Kennedy?
the disease he had. He did have a back brace, yes. And he was in a jump seat.
I didn't know that.
And our dad said that they were in the storm drain, which I still kind of believe.
Yeah, that would have been real easy to get away.
I think that's where he was in The Watchmen.
Oh, really?
Something like that.
Oh, yeah.
No,
it's a good movie.
What I was going to say, like, if I was coming at this cold, which in a sense I am, if Oswald, I'm saying, was implicated, I'm not doubting that if he was or wasn't, but if he missed, right? Like, he was trying to take a shot and then missed, and then there was somebody in there to ensure that Kennedy dies, right? Just to make sure that the kill was actual kill. There was a second shot that was just a kill shot to the face.
Right.
So, like, let Oswald get implicated by the sound coming from the 6th floor. And then if he's not dead, like if Oswald hits him in the chest or something, there's a chance that he could live. You're going to make sure that he dies. And it's a shot to the face. Yeah.
Well, and I would posit that the only reason you shoot from the 6th floor of the school depository and you wait until he turns in front of you and is past you is if you know there's another guy down there shooting straight at him.
No, it's the Dark Knight, right? Like the Joker's like part of the crew robbing the bank, and then he's like, "Oh, I'm supposed to kill the bus driver." Like it's just it's like a set of pawns, right? Like Oswald's the obvious target, like he's the fall goat, the scapegoat. My bad. But there's other assets in place to ensure that he dies, and they're the lesser known guys, right? That's what we're getting at. Yeah. Yeah,
I've also heard a story that there were. There's so many stories surrounding JFK, and I've been looking at this shit since like 2011. There's a story of at the end of the storm drain where it lets out, there's like a big ass pipe that a person could walk through, and there's an eyewitness, which is faulty, so grain of salt, that saw people walk out of it dirty after the assassination. Now, if you go to Dealey Plaza today, there's no fucking way you can shoot out of that storm drain because there's only like a 3 or 4 inch gap. But that road has been re-asphalted so much that gap is that small. In the 60s, it would have been like your average residential 6 to 8 inch gap for a storm drain.
Dude, I think that's... Are you saying right now?
Do you think they could still get him from that low, though, down in the storm drain?
I think so, because he was in a jump seat and he had his... like.
He was lifted. You did say that.
The one that they say hit him in the back and went this way through his back and neck, I think it hit him in the front. Because when he gets hit, he doesn't go, ow. He goes, oh shit. And like you normally cover where it came in, right?
I don't want to play the video, but the first hit, I thought like he was like reaching behind him, like, ow, hit.
No, he grabs his neck.
Okay.
He double clasps his neck. Because I don't think you assume an exit wound. I don't know. I've never been shot. But
well, you're assuming an entrance wound. Like maybe the exit wound is more hurtful to him than the. I'm just saying that's no. That's pretty gray.
I'll allow any devil's advocate argument, but for him to grab his neck makes me think he was hitting the neck.
That doesn't matter to me because the headshot is very clearly back. Like there's no way you're getting shot in the back of the head going forward. Like.
Yeah, that one's way more clear.
That to me, there's no question about it. Like either somebody doctored the video or there was another shot from another angle. Like no question.
Yeah.
And maybe they fucked up because they're like Oswald was nuts. That just contradicts what I was just saying. Like the only way for Oswald to be in the 6th floor is for it to come at it from a certain angle, right? That's the whole magic bullet conspiracy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but also think about this.
Well, they also found a gun up there. If it was
dude, it's insulting. It's crazy.
They found a gun with his fingerprints.
They found a smudged palm print, and they didn't find it until after he was in the morgue, and they had gone to the morgue.
Yeah. Well, either way, they had his gun. It was supposedly his rifle that shot JFK, Lee Harvey Oswald. And then they found him way down in Oak Cliff shooting a police officer. So in the 60s, do you think he would have been able to get over there that quick? Because he was arrested, I think they said like 45 minutes later after JFK had been assassinated. And so like getting over there in the 60s when you're already on the 6th floor of a building trying to escape, and then you have to avoid an entire mob of people that are also, around to see the president.
Right. He didn't have a car also.
And he didn't have a car, so
he had to ride the bus back to Oak Cliff, and he was supposed to have picked up a jacket and a revolver and then walk back to downtown to go to the movie theater. But at that time, after Tippit gets shot, we'll go off on this tangent too, who's the cop that got shot, who they say he did it. And he's supposed to be on the route from Oswald's house to the theater that they arrested him at. After Tippit gets shot, it's on the same day that the president died. So there's cops everywhere. And there's a street in between there that he would have to walk down that's like a main street where it's still covered in cops. And now they know they're looking for a 30-year-old slender white guy.
Yeah.
And so like he would have had, they're stopping everyone who looks like him. He would have had to make it through there to get to that movie theater. And I watched another program that tried to time it if he would have been able to do it. And they were like, yes, technically you can do it. We did it with 3 seconds to spare, but we knew exactly where and what we were doing following the official route or whatever, and had no impotence in the way. That,
and like if he was such a precision shooter, like he studied Marx, how do you say it? Marxism?
Marksmanship.
So, yeah,
Marxism
whatever.
is like socialism.
Well, no, he did study that too because he also studied.
He was a devout Marxist. Yeah.
Yeah. But he like did all that, so you have this like Marine that can take down anything, and he misses a shot.
You're talking about Oswald, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
He actually, I don't know where I heard this. He was in the Marines, but he was more like an intelligence guy. He watched radars for U-2 bombers, I believe.
Yeah, he had a lot to do with naval stuff. Because when he tried to give away his American citizenship, he told the U.S. Embassy that he was going to give away to the Soviet Union all the military secrets and all the naval information that he had, and the U.S. Embassy was like, whatever.
Yeah.
And then the Soviet Union was like, we're not fucking taking you.
Well, I've heard in that same documentary I referenced, The Men Who Killed Kennedy, it said that someone who he served with said he went to a meeting with higher ups and came back and said, I'm going to the USSR, and I'm coming back a hero, and that the military had programs where they would take like unassuming, seemingly disaffected military members and ship them to the USSR with fake information in hopes that the USSR would pick them up. And if they didn't, they just came back home. And that same documentary goes on to say that he was likely just a patsy. He was being controlled. He thought he was back home working for intelligence, but really they were like, go hand out this pamphlet, go run this communist group, but really you're doing it for the CIA. And then setting him up to be the patsy and going, hey, go work here and shit like that. Like they even named his handler, and he worked at a coffee shop before that. And if you walk out of the coffee shop, like next door is the CIA, across the street is Naval Intelligence, down the street is the FBI building.
Yeah.
And so like he was just in the center of like being fucked with, thinking that he's working for the government.
Dude, that might be a good segue, because I did want to get into, I think, at least in this episode, the MK Ultra and all that shit. Just, the CIA and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think Oswald ties into that, if I'm not mistaken.
He has to, because think about
Jack
it.
Ruby does.
But there's stuff with Jack Ruby and Oswald meeting up and stuff, or not Ruby personally, but
no, he met Ruby personally. Like a week or two before the assassination.
Okay,
happened.
That's a good segue. So 8-hour mark. We're gonna take a break. Come back, and we're gonna get into the wrongdoings of the CIA and why they would acquire Oswald as an asset to kill their enemies. Is that
Being
good?
JFK. Yeah.
Is that a good segue?
Yeah, Ruby's an hour by himself, so.
I think that's fair. Yeah. Okay. We'll be right back. Oh, wait. Yeah, we'll be right back.
Boy, what a day for a picnic. Hey, you're spraying stars on my sports shirt.
That's right, dear. Watch. And the next thing I knew, they went, Sue, you're spraying stars on that blouse. That's right. That's what's in this can. Watch.
Yes, the star of modern starches, new faultless spray-on starch. Call them faultless stars of freshness or faultless stars of fashion. Whatever you call them, they add a star-soft shield of cleanness to every fiber they caress to help all the clothes you iron, even modern fabrics, stay neater, look fresher longer, and they iron easier too.
Great idea, Sue, spraying those stars on my shirt. Sure feels good.
Looks good, too.
Try it yourself. Today's star of modern starches, faultless spray-on starch.
Johnny Quest, brought to you by
ABC, where you'd better come aboard for McHale's Navy every Tuesday night. I'm Ernest Borgnine, inviting you to join us.
They also seem to disappear more quickly in a rash of mysterious blonde napping. At 9, Central Time,
vegetables and salads. I got my first cookbook free. Look as though you feel very comfortable now, and there's a song, everyone's favorite song from Wizard of Oz. Would you please do it for us? Please. Would you do it?
I don't know what key. It's just the key of Q or something. I think if I'm doing Over the Rainbow, come and drape me, Mike, so that I do look a bit better. I think this whole thing is getting out of hand.
You want the other one?
I really don't know. It's just as long. Yes.
Is that better?
Yes.
You
No.
want the other prop?
Oh no. I think.
No? Okay.
I think.
Had everything her other shampoo had, too. Nice lather, nice smell, beautiful way of handling hair. Pam just made Head & Shoulders her regular shampoo.
Mosquito repellent that really works. And here's proof. Look at those hungry mosquitoes go for this research man's arm. Now, a quick application of Off. And look, they don't bite, they don't even light. Yes, with Off insect repellent, they don't bite, they don't even light. So get OFF, Off, the insect repellent that really works.
Like that, with the same strong character, the indomitable will to...
at these...
I know, it's such a long and often hopeless fight. I hope it will accomplish something. There seems to be such a shortage of schools and of teachers.
I'm glad that you mentioned teachers as well as buildings. The legislation that Senator Kennedy was working for was not proposing that the federal government hand paychecks to individual teachers if they teach the way the federal government said. The bill proposed giving money, federal money, to the states for the states to distribute for both buildings and for teachers' salaries.
Wasn't that Jackie Onassis?
I think it says at the bottom of it, but I turned
Jackie
it off. My
on
bad.
acid?
We're back.
Onassis. It's the maiden name of Jackie Kennedy.
Mm-hmm. Man, I'm nailing these sound cues. Just.
I wish I could hear them.
Did that have fucking claps?
You'll see it later, I guess. Appreciate it.
I'll hear it.
Another
Hear it in
level.
the rerun.
Yeah.
All right. So get us back on the train of thought you were on. I think you were going MK Ultra CIA route.
No, I don't have anything necessarily to go too far into. Just, that as Oswald was a CIA asset. I think that's the idea, right?
Yeah, he had to be.
Hear something fucking nuts about Alan Dulles. Look up his Wikipedia.
What accent are you talking about, Sprinkles?
Clayton's JFK.
What?
Oh, yeah. I think you need to do the
Wasabi's.
JFK.
Yeah,
I don't know if
Wasabi's
I could do
JFK.
that, man.
Not to put you on the spot.
What is the line? Here, I'll read this from his Wikipedia with the accent if I can do it. There's one sentence I'm looking for. Here it is. Okay. I'm not going to do the accent. I can't do it. As head of the CIA, during the early Cold War, he oversaw the 1953 Iranian coup d'etat, the 1954 Guatemalan coup d'etat, the Lockheed U-2 aircraft program, the MK Ultra project, mind control program, and the Bay of Pigs. This is all Alan Dulles. He started MK Ultra.
Wow.
It's all tied together, man. It's all the same people doing the same shit over and over again. I gotta shut my door. Hang on.
The very word secrecy is repugnant.
That's it.
What'd you say? I'm sorry.
That's what Sprinkles wanted.
Oh, he did the accent. I missed it.
I said the Bay of Pigs is what Jackie calls my butthole.
You know her personally?
Yeah. Anyways. So there's evidence that Jack Ruby was MK Ultra. And it just so happens that JFK fired Alan Dulles, the guy who started it, who is heavily implicated in the CIA's involvement of the assassination of JFK.
I thought I had something
Dots
else pulled
connected.
up. Yeah.
What are you pulling up?
Who Jack Ruby is, just so we can get a better explanation.
Oh, okay.
Jack Rubenstein. He grew up in Chicago, where he found all his mob ties, moved to Dallas, started a titty bar.
Jack Ruby's the guy that murdered Oswald. Okay.
Yeah. And he gave all the cops free booze, food, and shit like that. That's how he was allowed in the area where he was able to murder Oswald. It's because all the cops knew who he was.
And this just feels like by the playbook, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's all just so perfectly intertwined. It's impossible to
MK
understand.
Ultra, the CIA stuff like that definitely warrants its own episode. But dude, like the MK Ultra stuff is just so far. It sounds like science fiction when you hear about it, and you're like, nope, that was the CIA. They were doing that shit.
And it's hard. Obviously, there's not a whole lot about Jack Ruby until he kills Oswald, except for background information or maybe like what his businesses were at the time, as far as I know. But
he's in the FBI too, right?
I have no idea about that. That would be crazy.
I'm pretty sure the research that I looked at, he worked in the FBI.
Well, that would be incredible.
I'll be damned if I'm wrong.
Well, what I was going with that is that after he's arrested for killing Oswald in prison, he goes batshit crazy. And like
tell me about it.
At his so when he's sentenced, he makes this like half-ass speech where he's like, no one will ever know what I did or why I did it. He didn't say what I did. He said, no one will ever know why I did this. There's a whole thing behind it, and I'm taking it to my grave because you
Jack
put me to
Ruby?
death. Yeah. And then he goes to jail and loses his fucking mind. And like he's having doctors inserted around him and like sketchy people, and he just goes more and more crazy. Like I think he's another patsy, and he's so mobbed up that he knows he has to kill Oswald. Goes to prison, and before he can die or get sentenced to death, they're just like making his brain break. So if he said anything, no one will know what it is or if it has any amount of reliability.
I don't have their names, but there's evidence of people from this MK Ultra project visiting Jack Ruby in prison, right? That's how we're tying this together? Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Those are the inserted doctors.
Yeah. It's crazy shit, man, because then Manson gets involved and like it goes into a different decade, obviously, but I don't know, man. It's like I said, it sounds like science fiction when you hear about this stuff.
Right. Yeah, Sprinkles is exactly right. Jack Ruby was paid to kill Oswald, so Oswald couldn't talk because he was, I mean, if he was a patsy, they let him on so long that he has too many names to be able to give up. And they already saw him on TV go, no, I don't know what y'all are talking about. I'm a patsy. So when they go to move him, they're like, Ruby, murder him. Ruby murders him. Ruby goes to jail, and then Ruby goes crazy.
Yeah. Because they laced him with MK Ultra drugs.
Yeah.
LSD and all kinds of other stuff. Who knows?
Alan fucking Dulles. And the CIA. He owed the mafia money, and the government offered him a deal. That's an option too.
Especially if the mob is involved in the government, intertwined in the government, I should say.
Yeah, but I think if the government pays you to do it, you just, you get away with it better.
Yeah. You're like, do I not pay my taxes for the next 10 years?
Yeah, you don't go batshit insane on death row waiting for the electric chair.
Maybe you do. Maybe that's what happens. They just turn you into this other asset.
You might be right. Oh, someone brought up 11/22/63, that miniseries with James Franco.
Mm-hmm.
I have not watched it and compared it to what I've found on the internet to be reliable as far as the story behind it, but they show Oswald having a handler. There's a bunch of crazy Oswald stuff. Like he went to Mexico City 2 days or a week or 2 weeks maybe before the assassination. And at the time, Mexico City is a hub for like espionage. It's like the North American hub because it's easy for Europeans to get into Mexico City, and it's not that difficult to get from Mexico City to the United States. And the 60s is just sending fucking spies. We did it. They did it. And so
who's they?
The Russians. There's like an actual Boris and Natasha. Do you know that? And they were likely just Americans, and I think we put them to death for treason or something like that. It's crazy. We'll have to talk about that on another show. But he went to the Russian embassy in Mexico City. There's evidence he was going to the Russian embassies in America at the same time.
Is this Oswald still?
Yeah, and they think that he's meeting handlers at these locations, whether they're Russian or not.
What was that sound? Did you guys hear that?
I did hear that, but I don't know what that was.
The Americans.
Meaning.
Man, I have trouble. It's one of the overarching ideas, but I still have trouble believing the Cold War was like a legitimate war, like an actual thing. Yeah. It wasn't just some kind of thing that we propped up to justify again the build up of military.
Especially when the end of the Cold War is just out of nowhere, the USSR implodes.
Dude,
like we failed, and it's like, what? Y'all were just beating us to space and shit. Like,
I think there's some evidence that Oliver Stone was wrong in a lot of what he was doing, but I keep bringing back stuff he was doing with Putin and stuff. Like our interpretation of what Russia is, I think is like needs to be brought into question. I'm not saying they're the good guys in any way. I'm just saying like our idea of them being like our rival in any way, or like just any kind of threat in any way on our level, right?
Well, yeah, because like Russia looks really big on a map. I think it's actually smaller than the United States, and I know that the habitable zone of Russia is smaller than the United States. Like, because you can't go that far north in Russia until you're in like the.
I'm not saying that they're not bad guys or they're not the bad guy, but like the way that we've built them up to be like our mortal enemy or like our rival in any kind of way is like a joke, because we like outsize them in every metric possible as far as military and all that stuff, right?
Yeah, like they're kind of a paper tiger, and also
exactly
for literally 70 years they've been persona non
grata. They're the boogeyman. They're just the idea that something could happen, and they're like kind of the propaganda, right? Back to that, just that.
Yeah,
I don't trust Russia. I mean, I'm just saying.
You have to always be at war.
Yep. That's the idea behind the military-industrial complex.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, the Cold War, the military-industrial complex was in full fucking swing.
No, like, you could argue that was the whole purpose.
Bombs.
Yeah. You could argue that was the whole motivation, and that's why I keep touching on Truman and all that shit. Like, his idea of being the world police just, like, opened this economical door to become this powerhouse of military power. And they're like, fuck yeah, we're on board. Let's build up all of this wealth. And I mean,
have we ever played that Eisenhower video where he, like, his sign-off speech was like, beware the industrial military complex?
Yeah, that's
I opened
the one
door that we can't shut.
That's the one I'm referring to. That
have we played that on this show?
No.
We haven't played it on this show specifically, and that might need to be a whole episode. And I think that is one of our episodes. Like, one of the original ideas we had was the military-industrial complex.
Yeah, I believe so.
We can save it for then.
I don't mind breaking it down what our idea of it is right now anyways.
Yeah.
Real quick, I'll go, right? So my idea of it is that there's a reason that needs to be for
full screen yourself.
If you had like this giant threat, like then it's easier to get people on board on spending money on militaries, right? So the industrial military complex was this idea that we had to have the bigger stick, right? I'm sorry. Like whoever has the biggest stick wins or is the most feared, so nobody messes with them. That's kind of the idea I'm getting at, right?
Yeah, they set the tone for international politics at large.
Right. And that's the idea of it, is that it instills this fear. And I would say that it's like the reverse of terrorism, right? Like the whole idea of terrorism is the idea of the I don't want to go down that route. That's kind of
terrorism is like insulated, small scale fear mongering, but Teddy Roosevelt said walk quietly and carry a big stick. But your idea of being like the world power is constant. It is fear mongering at a mass scale.
Mm-hmm.
Like we walk around and go, no, you have to do what we say.
Exactly.
And it's all under the guise of spreading democracy, but in so few places does it feel like that has ever even worked. So like, why do we keep doing it? It's not fucking working. And I think the Iraq War really spelled that out.
Yeah, but think about it, like how war's never going to end just because it makes too much money. And
yeah, it's a staple of the economy.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say war's never going to end.
It wouldn't help the CIA at all.
I don't get on board with the war will never end. I think we are in times now, and it is. I think the idea of like boots on the troop, like boots on the ground, like actual combat between like soldiers is like, to me, that's beyond concept. Like, I don't think that's actually happened. I know that's actually happening in Ukraine right now because Russia's being the bad guy, right? Like, they're the ones invading another country doing this shit. Mm-hmm. I think that's my point. I'm saying, like, the idea of another country invading another country with actual physical force is, like, so beyond where I think the globe is at right now. And when I say end times, it's like the end times of war. It's like this idea of what we think of as war is ending fundamentally.
Well, you're talking about fourth generational warfare where it's all influence and it's almost no violence. Or like
I think the Cold War was the beginning of that. It was kind of you're moving into the idea of all this stuff, right? Like you're moving into the idea of the threat more so than an actual tangible threat, which was so easy in World War I, World War II, Vietnam, and all this stuff.
Yeah, are you familiar with the term fourth generational warfare?
No, I'm not. I'm sorry.
Me either.
Completely.
It's the end of like bullets basically, but countries are still waging war but the weapon is now influence. And so, I mean, you could harken this back to the social media conversations we had, but all they're really doing is swaying opinion of the population of the ruler that they're against. And it doesn't necessarily, or you can do like hacking the energy grid. It no longer requires standing armies to interrupt the functions of another country. And honestly, if you go to war with the United States, you're not interrupting the functions of the United States. You're bolstering its economy tenfold.
Bring it on. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think the point of view that they could only be held by an American. I think this is a point of view that could only be held by American. That's saying that's right. That is a very good point, Jason, and I'm very much concede to my point of view on this side of the pond, whatever you want to say. But I think the sentiment would hold if I went over to some ordinary person on any side of the globe and just talked to them, got to know them, that there's some common ground there, right? And I think the idea, is moving forward. At least it's like progressing, and I appreciate the counter.
I don't think it's progressing. I just think it's morphing because I think that
I'm saying the idea of like physical combat, like
it's changing, but it's not.
No, I'm saying like Russia and the USA and China, all that stuff are on like a whole nother level. They're doing like intellectual warfare and like cyber stuff, like all that shit. But I'm saying like to Jason's point, like if you went over to the Middle East or something like that, and they're like, obviously there's like gunshots in my window every night. Like there's a war going on right now.
No, we're in the middle ground of it. It hasn't fully taken form, but that is definitely where.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're talking about like tribal warfare or like an African nation warring with another African nation, just because if you assume they're both third world countries, like third world country warfare is still.
Yeah, I think it's representative of the
violent warfare. I mean, if you look at the cartel or Mexico as a country, that's all violence. So we're talking about like global war is now intellectual, less like. Yeah, someone might drop a nuke, but definitely right now it's happening that they're peddling influence against each other. So I agree with.
I think my point was that if the United States dropped a nuke, then that would obviously be a red flag, and like everybody else would like cancel out the United States. I'm saying like even at that point, depending on what happened,
then you become Nazi Germany.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Like if us being this like superior, bigger thing decides to do all this stuff, which is what Russia's doing, right? That's what I'm trying to say. They're being assholes. They're physically invading another country right now. Like on that scale of not level, then obviously that's a red flag. That's bad. I think there's been shadow wars to what Jason's saying. Like I think there's been ongoing warfare in parts of the world that have just been ongoing and for the sole purpose of sustaining certain economical stuff, like the industrial military complex, and the CIA is heavily involved in controlling those governments and overthrowing stuff, all that stuff. Like it's all just a game. 100%. But definitely still boots on the ground, still definitely physical fighting going on.
Yeah, I don't think the small scale stuff or like it's going to require every country is technologically advanced enough.
Dude, it gets into globalism and all that stuff too. I'm not arguing for the demise of culture, but like
But you are arguing for a one world government, and that's a real problem with me.
I think it is a inevitable thing that is going to happen.
That's a bad thing.
In like 100 years, 200 years, the idea of not having a world government, you're going to be like, that doesn't even make sense.
There's going to have to be a distinct change in the temperament and function of a human for a one world government to not be tyrannical.
Because right now it's very tyrannical.
The human mind would have to adjust to the extent that would be okay.
I agree with you. 100%.
And that you would have to assume that those in charge are benevolent or,
I wouldn't say they had to be benevolent.
Altruistic, almost.
I mean, I would hope they're altruistic, but I don't think that they have to be benevolent.
But they never are.
I don't know, man. I'm saying at some point it's going to be inevitable. The United States is a good representative of what one world government would be like. 50 states united. Jason, thank you, man. One love.
Yeah, but there would be a head of the UN, and the UN would have a little more influence.
We think our own government is corrupt. I'm not saying that stuff's not going to happen. I'm just saying that at some point we're going to be forced to decide to make decisions on a planetary level. And I mean,
I agree. And I agree that it would function like how Jason is saying.
Yeah.
But I'm saying for like
no, dude, fuck all that. No. One world government. That's happened before. If you do the Graham Hancock, Randall Carson route, one world government was Atlantis and all that stuff. That was a global.
That is not the route I'm taking.
I'm just saying, like, that is what needs to happen.
And what happened to them?
I'm saying that in the function of the United States, we're like so at each other's necks that if you expand that globally,
I don't think we're there yet. I'm not saying we're there yet, or any way or example of what should happen now. I'm not saying that. The concept of what I'm talking about is not. It's not a tangible one. It's not an actual concrete thing. I'm just saying, at some point, we'll get past all that bullshit and I think come together. And that's why I said Atlantis. I think like if you had the 5,000, 10,000 years of doing this shit, I think you figured out that you're all just one people. You're just inhabitants on Earth, right? All the culture boundaries kind of disappear if you do the ancient civilization route.
Then we need to get rid of greed and money because that's what causes people to be corrupt is like, okay, well, the black market exists, so we can still sell guns, sell drugs, sell humans.
I agree, and my point is that corruption corrupts so entirely that the more power you give a person, the more likely it is for them to be corrupted. And if you're giving someone or some function of group of people, like how many countries are there? 72? Say you have a 72 president conflagration built like the United States is, then there's a president. There's too much power there. That's not sustainable. It has to. You have to change the mind of every human to not feel greed, or you have to disseminate power in a different way. That I don't think the U.S. government would scale into the world, I guess is my argument.
The U.S. government, the United States, was a good example, but I don't think you could scale it to what the global thing that we're talking about. No.
Well, and I think it's already been so corrupted in the 100 and something years that we've been around that it's not even the same. And documents like that do need to breathe, but it's to the point where people have less freedoms. And so if you're saying, yeah, let's do that longer, then at the end of the day, you're a communist tyrant.
Do you know I think I've talked about this before on the show, but do you know the German government rewrites their whole constitution every 30 years? So every generation, they basically get together and write a new constitution. Not a brand new one, I don't think, but maybe they just kind of get together and like go through it. Like, hey, this doesn't make sense, but like let's redo this bit. But like, I know we have amendments and all that shit, but I like that idea. I don't know.
I think mayonnaise is trying to push us back on track.
What does instant potatoes have to do with JFK?
What does one world government have to do with JFK? It's closer. I'll give you that.
Our fucking intro video. He's talking about getting rid of those secret societies and all that.
Yeah.
Okay. I would agree with that too, but I'm saying there's a lot of that's driven by the military-industrial complex idea. I'm not saying it's the military-industrial complex, but the idea of that. I'm saying obviously we'd have to get past it, but I think that is a symptom of something else that we're being kind of controlled, pushed into. Does that make sense?
Do you think the industrial military complex is a symptom?
No, I'm saying a long time ago somebody decided to introduce religion for good or bad, and the outcome that we're at is the CIA. Different episode. I'm sorry.
Doesn't matter. The CIA comes out of religion?
Nope. Doesn't matter. Different episodes. We're going way off here. It was my end goal to the CIA being like a secret society controlling the narrative and like keeping us dumb and at war with each other and UFOs kind of planting shit. But
I believe it.
Different stuff.
I think they peddle influence and they're better than most. Is how I would tone down what you just said.
But we have to think they get their information just like we do.
Who's they?
Yeah, but they're a group based solely on doing so.
Yeah, technically.
Yeah. To tie it back in, I mean, if the CIA was involved with the JFK assassination, that opens the door to me that the CIA is part of the whole secret society, the Illuminati thing.
Okay.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, they gotta be.
There we go. And I'm trying to say the evidence of that is if JFK was going up against the military industrial complex, like the council that he had, like maybe, I want to say the majority, but I don't think it's 6 out of 10. But the majority of the people were saying, hey, like, drop the fucking nukes. And he was like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. What's route B? And they're like, hey, just send more troops, like keep putting more fire on the flame or something. That's the route he took. But I'm saying the people that were telling him to drop the nukes and stuff to like send the full might of the force he was pushing up against, and that's kind of why they acquired the Jack Rubies and the Oswalds, and they kind of changed the course and bring them back into Nixon and all that stuff to go invade Vietnam and all this shit. But
yeah, no, I think the best way to get yourself killed is to become president and talk badly about intelligence agencies.
Yeah, exactly. Not play the game.
And you can make the argument that was what Trump was doing, but I'm not going to go that route.
Yeah, you could.
Yeah, but now we're in fourth generational warfare, and now you don't have to kill Trump. You just get to...
Dude is genius level what they're doing.
You get to make him a racist, sexist, homophobe, worst person ever in the world. And I'm not going to simp for him, but obviously he, as a president, maybe second to George Bush, is like the most slandered.
Biden?
Or talk shit about. No, Trump.
Yeah, that makes sense.
All anyone ever says about Biden is that he slurs his words and says words that don't exist, because he does.
He definitely does.
But if fucking Trump had a Hunter Biden laptop and it was Don Jr.'s laptop, dude, prison tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
I agree.
I don't agree with all of it, but it's not hard to see that he was the most hated by the media.
No, I think Biden's part of the same system that Clinton was part of. Same system that all the Democrats are part of. That's not fair. I'm sorry.
Well, I feel like a lot of them are a part of it. Not every single one.
No, I think there's some true Democrats out there that are true to it. And I would say Bernie Sanders might be the best example of it, maybe.
Yeah.
But then you have the insiders like the Clintons.
Well, or
Yeah.
or
Who have
Bernie's,
ties to Epstein and need to answer for it.
or you have Bernie's second, what do you call it, campaign, where he totally changed all of his views and then just dropped out and went vote for Biden. Like the second one was not as influential
weird.
or seemingly.
I thought he lost the primary. The second time around, I think he lost the primary.
Yeah, but he lost because when he was running, he didn't have the same integrity as the first time. He stopped saying millionaires and billionaires and just said billionaires because he became a millionaire. Because he made a shitload of money off of running the first time.
Mm-hmm.
He cashed out because he was 80. That's what he did. You can't blame him for it.
No,
but he should have won the first one. He got railroaded. That probably would have been the best presidency for the country at the time.
Dude, it's crazy to think about how different that would have changed the course of events, and you could say the same thing with like Bush and Al Gore and all that shit. Just like that would have been a massive pendulum swing. I think if we got Al Gore back in 2004, whatever it was.
Oh yeah, instead of Bush.
I guess it was 2000. Shit, yeah.
Yeah, it was 2000.
Yeah, if we had gotten Gore instead of Bush, like we would, I think, be driving electric cars or like be further along on some of that shit. Not that that's the right way to go about it, but I think we would have been further around that vein for sure.
Yeah, that one does seem more consequential than others. Like, because like, what if Kerry beats Obama?
No, I think Bernie Sanders
What
and
if McCain beat Obama? Would it matter though? Is what I'm saying.
I don't think it would have mattered one difference if Hillary would have won. It would have mattered very, very little. But if Bernie had have won, I think it would be as dramatic as Gore versus Bush, probably.
Oh yeah, and okay, so Honey makes a good point. I'm going to say this. Can we acknowledge that we have had the two oldest presidents ever back to back, and that ties back to JFK because he was the youngest. Also, part of his appeal was that Eisenhower, towards the end of his presidency, was not. Everyone loses influence towards the end of your presidency, and JFK was looked at in a higher light than Nixon because he was young, had a young daughter. Jackie was a young wife, and people wanted that reinvigoration they wanted youth instead of age.
Just catching up with chat. Ultimately, this all comes back to 9/11, how the Republicans exploited situation to chase weapons mass destruction, but really it was all about greed. To me, that's just more 9/11.
Yeah.
That's more
Pearl
Harbor.
There
that's
were
all
the
the same
weapons
shit.
of mass destruction.
Yeah, it's further along that vein. Electoral college needs to go. I would agree, and I would think that there needs to be some kind of modern version that's adapted to the internet as far as election processes. And fuck President's Day needs to be moved to Election Day, and all businesses, all schools, everybody should just shut down on Election Day. Anything opposing somebody to going to vote, like eliminate any obstacle from anybody going to vote. Can we all agree on that?
No, I have a spicy take I'm afraid to say out loud.
No, this is why we're here. And this is probably divergent from JFK, but why
I think
would
if
you prevent...
If you're not politically
I didn't vote
engaged,
in a primary this
then
past
you shouldn't
round.
vote.
What?
I think if you're not politically engaged, then you shouldn't vote. Like, that's my spicy take. Why does everyone have to vote?
That's not what I'm saying.
That's what I'm saying. You're saying
I'm saying voter suppression. Just zero voter suppression.
Oh, yeah, I agree we should get rid of voter suppression, but I don't know why everyone should be able to vote. Like, if you don't have any stake in the game, or if you aren't engaged in politics at all, like you don't really even know what's going on, why are you voting?
If you're going to go that route, then you have to... That opens up another door that I don't want to get into, but...
No, it opens the door to voter suppression, and I agree, and I don't know how to bridge that gap, but...
I agree with mayonnaise. We should be able to vote from our phones. Why do they have to count ballots?
I agree. So to me, the oldest presidents back to back, right? Like it's Trump and Biden, right? To me, that speaks to an older generation that is on their way out, and it's not sustainable. That's what I was trying to get at. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's true.
At the end of their careers.
If you do the math right, like there's just this older group of people that are on their way out. and that was kind of like the last tail end of that generation. I'm hoping, that's what I'm saying, the optimistic to me is saying like the next round of guys are going to be in our demographic. Like they'll probably be some 50-year-old or something like that.
Ketchup said they should be able to just fill out a ballot at random, in his opinion. But if you go and just write down at random, I don't know. I just disagree with that. It just...
I think you should know what you're voting for.
You should know what you're voting for and not just go mark random names because you have no idea what
and so I guess
that person is saying. And then it could be completely against what you believe.
Or if you believe nothing, it automatically is. But I think my argument ends at like, why are there commercials that say you have to vote or like get out the vote? And it's like, why? Shouldn't just the interested people do this because they're interested? And they kind of at least think they have a semblance of knowing of what is going on. Why would you send people that have no idea what's going on to vote for something? I feel like that would be me voting for best indie film. I don't watch indie films. I have no idea why I would vote in that. I don't have an interest in voting in that. I'm politically engaged and I don't vote.
I did not vote. I know I got called out in the chat a couple times, but I did not vote in the primary. It wasn't like
I did not either.
Presidential one. It didn't really matter anyway.
It totally is your right to do as much or little research as you want, but I don't think. Why would you want to do no research and then vote? That doesn't make sense.
Vote. Yeah, you're just wasting time out of your day to go up.
That's not necessarily true, because if I didn't do any research or something like that, but I had a friend or a parent or somebody that I identified with and was like trusted, and they said, "Hey, I go vote for this guy. He's my guy," or something like that, I would go vote for that guy.
Damn, that's sheeple speak, man.
I know that sheeple speak. I know that's sheeple speak, but I think that's a valid point, and it just speaks to more of it. Klinsman's listen too much of the people complaining about
Mayonnaise has no idea what I think about. I'm not trying to take anyone's rights away. I'm just curious as to why they're even interested in voting.
Yeah,
I don't think you get to ask that question. I think that's the whole part of the experiment, the democracy.
Of course I do.
No, because then you're going to imply like, oh, if you would just do your research, you would vote my way.
They might. They're uninformed.
If there's enough idiots to vote for something and it goes through.
Trump got elected.
If there's enough idiots to do that, then it needs to happen, is what I'm trying to say. That's all I'm trying to say. Don't sugarcoat it and just pretend that you're righteous and know what's best and do it anyway, like Hillary and Bernie, right? Like, I don't know.
We're off on a tangent, and I know I have like the bad take.
No, it's a valid. That's what I want is the Discord, like, because from my like, just if I'm going on to intuition, like everybody should be able to vote that wants to go vote, and I'm not saying the influencing.
No, you should if you want to go vote.
That's probably the key. If you want to go vote, you should be able to go vote, and that was the point. That was it. I'll leave it at that. Go ahead.
I agree with that point, but my question in response to that is, if you have no interest, then why vote? Then why are there TV commercials that telling you have to? Why does everyone around you tell you have to vote if you're not interested in voting?
If you're in a circle that you're getting a message to say, hey, go vote for a certain guy, then you've done your homework. You're in that bubble, that circle, that realm. You're going to go vote for the guy. Then I would say, yeah, you're going to go vote for the guy. You should have the right to go vote for whatever your circle is telling you to go vote for. And if you're voting for some stupid cause, then shame on you for not doing your research. And I hope that's the point I'm trying to make. Like, it's reflected. Trump was a bad thing. Like, I hope that comes out that was a bad experiment. Like, that was a bad idea. Don't do that. But it should be allowed. That's the point.
I mean, I'm not even arguing for disallowing it, though.
You're just saying if you're uneducated, you shouldn't vote. I would agree with that.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying you should be allowed to vote, but if you're not interested, then just keep being uninterested. We shouldn't have national campaigns about how important it is to vote, no matter who you're voting for. I agree it's it's important, but if it's not important to you, then it's not important.
I think it implies the question, and to your point, maybe it doesn't. But if you're hearing an ad saying, "Hey, it doesn't matter who you vote, it doesn't matter who you vote for, just go vote," right?
Mm-hmm.
To me, that invokes a question like, "Well, then who should I vote for?" And then immediately you're gonna type into Google like, "Who should I vote for?" And then whatever you're
paid the most to Google.
That's the point, right? Like I'm saying, like whatever you're in, whatever realm you're in, bubble you're participating in, you're gonna get
if you
that.
Don't vote, you don't get jury duty. That's not
That's true. I don't know. I've never received it ever, and I've technically only voted once, and I've never received jury duty.
I've never registered to vote, and I've gotten jury duty twice.
Oh,
there you go.
That's Dallas County, though.
She is in a different state.
Yeah. Oh wow.
What would motivate someone to vote is
from this state too. So I don't what.
Well, Mayonnaise asked what would motivate someone to go vote at all. It should be policies and how you think that the country that you live in should be ran, or what the laws should be. And what should matter most to you when voting is local elections. But I don't even know who the fucking mayor of my town is right now. Like, to the extent that those matter is so low on my radar. It might mean we get liquor stores. That's the only reason I would register to vote locally.
Well, you could take an argument and say that. Like, do you want a liquor store in your town?
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Maybe I don't.
There's liquor sitting in front of me, dude. I absolutely do.
I gotta go get it. I know. I realize that. But maybe that's part of the tax, is I gotta go get it.
Yeah. And then it's supposed to scale up from there. That's not how it functions now. And so we're voting, like, if you're voting in a presidential election, you are somewhat voting on policies, but I would say presidents don't even get elected on policy. They get elected on likability.
I would say shame on all of this because I don't know who the mayor is either, but I would hope that I was voting for a mayor that advocated for the things that I do. There should be a transparent education.
Yes, I agree with Salsa. Take the popularity vote out.
I agree too.
That's all the president is a popularity contest.
But there's a large movement of people. There's a large movement of people that think that the popularity vote should be the binding vote, not the electoral college. But I would argue they don't know how our government functions. So I absolutely agree with Salsa. There should be more transparent education provided to voters on each candidate's published stance. I would agree with that. I think the attack ads are bad. But I think if you're not interested in looking at that candidate's published stance, then don't fucking vote.
Dude,
you're not really interested in voting.
It's gonna bring a lot of stuff into question. Like I feel like the whole stuff leading up to the presidential debates should be redone. The elections, debates, and all that stuff. I'm talking about.
No, and we can tie this back to Kennedy.
Yeah.
The presidential debates changed that election.
Yeah, and there's an argument like how influential
transparency got us JFK instead of Nixon, and obviously Nixon became a bad president.
What did you just say? Transparency got us Nixon? What?
Yeah, they had presidential debates. They asked some questions. They answered the questions. It's the first time two people argue against who should be president on TV.
That debate got us JFK, not Nixon.
That's what I said.
Okay, just make sure.
They got us out of Nixon for 8
I'm saying Nixon, not Nixon. JFK was part of the people that knew how to influence that. Nixon walked up just thinking he could like talk about his principles, be like, "Hey, I'm running on this economical thing, this blah 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 blah." Like it's just black and white. Like why wouldn't you vote for me? JFK like got up there and was like an act, like looking at the camera, reading a script, like here's what I think. Like to me, that's like.
No, I think he was being genuine. I think his taking advantage of the situation helped him.
Okay.
But he didn't take advantage in a immoral way. He was just better.
I'm saying
Nixon, what Ketchup said, he was sweating like an animal. He seemed like a fucking nut.
Nixon?
Turns out he was.
Yeah, I want to go watch that. I've never actually seen it.
Yeah, that would be an interesting thing. For sure. I'm saying like the idea of dressing up for those debates and having scripted debates probably stemmed from the first televised debate with Nixon and JFK.
Oh, now they know that if you look prettier, you get better votes.
That's what I'm trying to say. Like maybe Nixon had the wherewithal to like come at it from a different angle than Nixon did. Nixon just said, "Hey, I'm going to speak to my points. Here's my bullet points. Like this is what I'm running on." And JFK had the wherewithal to be like, "Hey, how can I manipulate this into something to work for me?" Does that make sense?
Yeah. Honey said I voted straight libertarian. Cool. However, be careful because that lady that voted or that ran as a libertarian in 2020 was nuts. I don't remember her name.
I would have voted libertarian if I wouldn't have voted.
Oh, Forward Party's Yang.
I voted Yang, and I knew I was lighting my vote on fire, but I've definitely voted Yang the last chance I got to vote for him.
I think he ran for mayor or something of New York.
Maybe Michigan. Maybe that's what. Catch up, correct us if I'm wrong, but Andrew Yang did run in the primaries for the Democratic nomination, but got shut down pretty early.
Yeah. He had a small cult following that if you would have let breed, probably would have. He probably would have been standing correct towards the end.
Right.
Or like.
I think I registered to vote for the purpose to vote for Bernie, and then when the time came, because I was already a registered Democrat, I voted for Yang.
Do you know why? Because that was Bernie's second run, and he became a fake old man.
Oh.
Yeah, I think like his speeches kind of became stale. His first go, it was all kind of like emotion, pure.
He changed a bunch of policies too. Like, here's something weird. Did you know that he was for closing up the border in 2016, but against it in 2020?
Mayonnaise said, did they get canceled?
I think we did get canceled.
It's the goddamn CIA, dog.
We said CIA. We said CIA way too many times.
Way too many. You're saying it way too many times.
We had 12 viewers and they had to kill us.
It's weird.
We have too much influence.
Okay, I just have to put it out there. I am not suicidal. If y'all find me dead, it wasn't me.
I have no intention of killing myself. Like I love my life very much. I'm very happy with it. Like if I end up dead, same sentiment trait.
Right. Now full screen me. I might.
If Clayton comes up disappearing, don't worry about it. This is probably intentional.
Damn.
I think that was worth it cutting us off because we were pretty far down.
We climbed back out.
I think JFK was for sure 100% conspired against and killed deliberately by the government.
I think it was a mix of the CIA and
FBI,
the FBI, the Soviet Union.
I believe
all that stuff.
I think he was killed by the mafia and it was covered up by the government.
There you go.
That makes sense.
Everybody helped each other.
And there's absolutely a chance the government told the mafia to do it.
Well, they just used them as like a arm, right? They just stretched another arm, and it was the mob.
Right.
Did it just cut out again? What the fuck is happening, man?
We need plugs.
Yeah.
No, I don't think you cut out again.
I guess
it has been showing as a rerun the whole time. I saw that and didn't say anything.
It says that every week.
Yeah, I think it's something to do with new users.
Says that as well.
Yeah, every time Drake streams, it does it.
Oh, well, we'll figure it out. Let's hit plugs. Oh, wait. What are we doing next week? Nikola Tesla?
I did like that idea. So, yeah, next week we'll do Nikola Tesla, and that just opens the door back to ancient civs because I think he was tied back into the sacred geometry stuff that he was very much aware of.
It ties back into the CIA, too, because they totally got rid of a bunch of his work.
Was the CIA around Nikola Tesla time?
All right, maybe not the CIA. But
no, they were in the 50s.
All his patents were classified. That's what I meant by that. The government concealed his work to some extent. It all ties back into everything.
Okay.
It's all happening. Alex Jones.
All right, who wants to go first? Drake?
All right, so my name is finally updated. It's Inked Beats. You can find that on Twitch, Instagram, and Twitter. I don't really post on Twitter too much, but what'd you say?
Spell it.
It's INKDBEATS, all one. There's no spaces. I think on Instagram there's an underscore in between both words. Other than that, it's just one. I usually definitely always stream on Wednesdays, and I've been streaming more frequently lately just because I've been bored. Also, if y'all can do us a favor, I saw that we had a couple more subscribers on YouTube. If y'all can get those numbers up, that would really help us. All the support helps. We love all of it. We want to continue to do this, and following and all that really does help us.
Or Rumble if you're conspiratorially minded.
I'm good. I'm done.
Less intrusive platform. I guess I was talking, so I'll do mine. I'm at BOC Wasabi on Instagram, Twitter, Twitch. I don't Twitch very often, but follow me and you'll see when I'm on. But every Sunday I do a show on YouTube. It's The Rolling Third, all one word, The Rolling Third. And we have a Patreon and merch and stuff like that. Oh, I'm going to be working on the merch store for this weekend. We were asked that early. Also, if you're not interested, don't vote. Or don't buy a shirt is what I meant. But I think that's it for me. Yeah. Find me on YouTube, Rolling Third.
I don't really have anything other than the show. I occasionally pop up on Twitch, BOC Molasses. If you want to check us there, check me there, not us. But that's pretty much it. I am on Instagram, but it's really for the sole purpose to promote the show. But that's it. I occasionally retweet things on Twitter, just crazy conspiracy stuff, mostly to do with the ancient stuff.
Follow our Funny Nut Theories on Twitter. That shit is actually pretty good. Me and Jeremy are retweeting shit.
It's usually just Graham Hancock shit or something along those lines, right?
And the Instagram. Follow the Instagram.
Now, dude, you found a zoomed-in molecule of DMT or something? Was that you?
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
That
Where
was
was that
fucking
at?
lit.
Was
Dude.
that Twitter?
Cool. That was Twitter.
I'll have to... yeah, if you want to see that, you got to go to Twitter. I can't find it. Too bad. Ew, Twitter. See, we need to do an update on the social media stuff because we didn't get into Elon and the whole thing going on with Twitter because I don't really have an opinion. I thought I had an opinion, but it got very hardly...
I think the jury's out, man. I have no idea what's going on yet. He's reinstating a bunch of people. He's super anti-Alex Jones, so Alex Jones probably ain't coming back. He reinstated Donald Trump, but Donald Trump has like a non-compete with True Social or something, so he's not coming back.
No, he's on it.
At least for now. His account is back, but he's not tweeting.
I saw that. Like, I've been waiting for a tweet from him, but nothing.
Yeah. So anyways, Nikola Tesla next week.
Right on.
Nikola Tesla next week. Follow us on everything. It does help us kind of get to a broader audience, which is, I guess, ultimately the goal, right? This is kind of a revocation for our ideas.
Oh, yeah, and clip funny stuff or interesting points for us so we can repost it.
Mm-hmm. I think with that, we are going to leave you guys, and I'm trying to pull it up as I'm talking, so this isn't technically stalling until I hit play, which I did. There we go. See you guys.
What is this?
Pray to God you don't drop that shit.
Are we muted?
Hi guys, that's my music. Forgot to tag a little while.
I keep a 3-minute pace. I keep the belt in my place. That's just in case. I let the chance go to waste on the shelf like I'm checking the day. Give me plenty white tie, grow rock star. Shimmy, y'all hop, pick a neck, not buster. Gotta get a check, but it's not what I'm
after. Oh, we muted now?
Gotta get a check, but it's not what I'm after. Really, the
You're right.
energy isn't my enemy, man. Building together.
You're muted though.